What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. My name's John J. II. I'm here alongside Robert Rachow, our NFL insider, expert, and enthusiast. Robert, how you doing today, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing good, feeling good, looking good. I mean, does it get any better than this? I don't think so. Got a great show in store for you guys today. Got a lot of great topics, a lot of breaking news, and some highlights, some lowlights, kind of the best of both. And we're going to bring it all to you here on the DCP. Thank you so much for joining us. So I guess let's just jump in. Let's start with some good news. Okay, talk to me about the Detroit Lions, Robert, and just how elated they are. I looked on Polymarket, a big Polymarket guy. Even though you can't bet on Polymarket in the U.S., which I think is kind of some bullshit if you ask me. But they're right behind. They're a notch below the Kansas City Chiefs in the power rankings or in the stats, the betting odds, whatever you want to call it. And the best chance to win the Super Bowl. They're right below the reigning champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. What kind of level are they on? What are they thinking down in Detroit? In a good way. They're doing something right. Dan Campbell's doing something right down there. What can you tell me about Detroit football right now?
Yeah, I mean their offense is just clicking. I mean, it's just an improved team versus what they had last year. We got a revamped secondary. Offense is running that two-headed monster at running back, and there's some players that aren't really getting as many touches this year. Like St. Brown and Laporta's touches are kind of down, but the offense as a whole has just been clicking on another level where they've blown out two teams now, which as a longtime Lions fan, is something I'm not used to seeing. So that's pretty cool. And the one concern is still the defense. Like without Aiden Hutchinson, and then they lost Pascal, and they've lost multiple defensive linemen now for long term or the season. And it was evident against the Titans that they weren't getting any pass rush. So it's like that might have worked against the Titans, but when you start to get to the playoffs and you're starting to play, the Eagles and the Niners and the Packers, those are the kind of teams that are going to make you pay without a pass rush. So it's a really good win, really good time to be a Lions fan, but definitely got a little bit of concern, and hopefully Brad Holmes makes a move here before the trade deadline so they can get that defensive line back on track, without Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, they've been hitting towards trying to get a trade in before the deadline. I have heard that, and it looks like they might. I guess if it wasn't on the defense, what else would they be looking for position-wise to add as a pickup?
Yeah, I mean, other than, they've also lost some linebacker. I don't know if Rodriguez is going to be out for a number of weeks, but they lost Barnes for pretty much the year. So maybe some depth there, but it seems like they found the depth in that Trevor Nowatzki from SVSU. He came in and got a sack last week and then got an interception this week. So it seems like maybe they already found that depth piece there. And I mean, offense, they're always talking wide receiver, but I think, when they scooped up Tim Patrick, he kind of filled that void of, a bigger, like down the field, make a couple plays a game kind of guy. So really, I mean, they're kind of set other than that D line. That D line is really the concern, specifically defensive end. So, um, Carlton Davis is kind of underperformed at corner. But I feel like they're just going to ride the season out. I mean, they already gave him a big 1 year deal to come in and play corner. So they're probably just going to ride that out. But
Yeah, seeing Tim Patrick come in, make a couple plays a game, kind of has a little bit of Sam Laporta-esqueness to him. And having that big guy in the wide receiver core is obviously huge for them. It's kind of interesting to see Detroit be in a position where they're kind of polishing up their depth chart. They're not really adding guys out of great necessity per se, but they're adding guys to really add some essence to their team. And they're not really used to being in this position before the deadline, at least. I think whatever their record is, it hasn't been this good since 1956. I saw in a stat line. So they're doing something right down in Detroit. I got to tip my cap to them. And I was talking to Sam Vitale, and I was talking to him about, hey, are you? I didn't know. Are you a Lions fan? I asked him. He's like, I can't really write myself off as a Lions fan. Too late to jump on the bandwagon. Kind of was where the conversation was going, and I was like, I'm right there with you. I want to throw a Montgomery jersey on and be like big time Lions guy. Obviously, now they're doing so well, they're in my state, they're the Detroit Lions. Everybody's Lions fan that I know. But it wouldn't be right to do that. And I guess I don't feel terrible about it because I'm not a bandwagoner kind of guy. I'm a ride or die kind of guy. So I'm not really bummed out about it, but I'm really happy to see the Detroit Lions playing well and they're succeeding. They're polishing up their offense, their defense. Might need a little work, like you said, at the end position with losing Hutchinson, but they're going to figure it out. They're going to make it work. They're going to make adjustments where they have to, and they've done that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they can finish out the season and lead into the postseason here come
For
December.
sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good deal. All right, we got to talk about Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Are the Jets cooked? I thought, adding Devontae Adams was going to be like the saving grace. So the prodigal son was coming home. And it has to
Yeah.
be, it has to do with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had to have played a pivotal role in getting Devontae Adams into a New York Jets jersey. What's gone wrong for the New York Jets? Is Aaron Rodgers to blame? And when does it stop being Aaron Rodgers' fault that this offense isn't clicking?
Yeah, I mean, there's a week's click on here. I mean, it's become more evident that he's a major part of their problem. He's according to people he's played against, like he's just not the same guy. Like he's not as mobile is like kind of one of his biggest traits. Even though he wasn't like a Lamar Jackson, the guy was mobile enough to get out of the pocket, make some plays. And he's too old. He's too old to do that now. So now he's got to stand in there behind a pretty average or below average offensive line and just take the licks. So, yeah, I think, yeah, I kind of was saying, maybe they're, around a 500 team, but obviously they're trending way to below that now. So I don't think adding like a future Hall of Fame receiver is really going to help that out much. And as much as they've had a good defense, as soon as they fired Saleh, seems like that defense is kind of reeling a little bit too. So I don't know, man. You can only ride on a 40-year-old quarterback's skill for so long, and he's a cerebral guy. He can still make the throws, but where at what point can you not point the finger at him, right? I mean, the guy's getting whatever he wants. He's getting Lazard. He's getting Devontae Adams brought in. He potentially had a hand in firing the coach. And here they are sitting at what 2-6 or something. I mean, it's been a disaster. Definitely feel bad for the old Jets fans over there, but it's been nothing but tough luck for them for a long time, and I don't think it's getting better anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yeah, you know what? The New York Jets really, it reminds me of a fuse box in a way. You're testing different fuses. You're pulling fuses out, seeing if it's a blown fuse, and you're putting fuses back in, maybe even in slots they shouldn't be in. That kind of thing. You're kind of plug and playing, trying to find where the issues lie. I think that's what the Jets are doing, kind of, getting rid of Saleh, adding Devontae Adams, things like that. They're switching fuses out. And I feel like they still have some burnt fuses in there, and they just haven't found them yet. I don't know if they will find them this season, but I mean, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers' age in the NFL, which he's kind of getting up there. We've been calling him the grandfather of quarterbacks in the NFL for years, a couple of years now. So to see
Yeah,
him be under center and still want to win games, and he's got to want to win games. He's got to want another championship, another ring before he's done. I got to assume, and he's not getting that out of his team, and it's not even looking like it might even be a possibility this year. So there's
yeah,
a lot of things at play, and I just don't know if they're going to find that burnt fuse.
yeah. A couple years off an MVP is pretty surprising to see the decline like this fast, but that's how it goes at quarterback. Like you look back to Peyton Manning and how he just got carried to that Super Bowl his last year. I mean, he was cooked. I mean, he threw about as many interceptions as he did touchdowns last season, which is super uncharacteristic of him. And yeah, he just didn't have that arm strength anymore. Too many injuries, too old. Like, it's going to hit you eventually.
Now, are you talking about Peyton Manning or Peyton Manning? Just kidding.
Oh, shit.
But you mentioned that, and it's almost like a Russell Wilson type of scenario too. You're going crazy with the Seahawks, then you go to Denver, and it's not
Yeah,
really what you expected. Now you're in Pittsburgh, and you're seeing some flashes, but it's those quarterbacks that get really hot and then they burn out.
Yeah.
Even you can name a bunch of quarterbacks that's happened to, uh, and it's just one of those things where once you find your high, you find your peak, and then you fall off. It's so hard to find that peak again. It might even be impossible to find it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We're trying
you
it
know,
with a new team, new organization, like new offense. I think he's worked with Hackett before, I'm pretty sure, but yeah, it just doesn't seem like the offense he's used to running. Um, yeah, just uncharacteristic Aaron Rodgers style gameplay. So I don't know what's missing. It's hard to tell. I mean, they have a lot of talent on their team, but sitting there with a couple wins, it's hard to not point the blame at the general of the offense.
yeah, it really is, and you got to point the finger at the offense because they're the one that's handling the ball. They're the ones that are delivering the ball to the end zone, which you need touchdowns to win games. Obviously, it takes both sides, but if you can't get the ball in the end zone and you can't get a couple wins and get on a roll, which it looked like they were going to somewhat early in the season, they were going to find that role that they needed to kind of carry them through, at least the first half of the season. That hasn't happened. So they're
Yeah.
facing a big uphill battle right now. So we'll have to see how that pans out going forward. Let's talk about Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs obviously succumbed to a ACL tear, and he is out for the season. I mentioned just how much, and we've talked about it's been the storyline for a lot of conversations we've had on this podcast, just how much injuries have plagued so many different teams from the preseason on through the better half of the first half of the season. So, what can you tell me about Stephon Diggs? How is he being out going to hurt the Texans, and how are they going to rebound from this?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like he was just kind of just starting to find his stride there. He's had a couple decent games there now, and yeah, it hurts. They trade for him, and bring him in. Seems like he's automatically fitting right into that offense. Gets a few scores, and yeah, it definitely hurts, man. And they had some other injuries at receiver this year too. I think Tank Dell was in and out. One of
Yeah.
their other big receivers was in and out of the lineup. So
Yep. Tank Dell.
and as somebody that's got C.J. Stroud on their fantasy team, it's not looking good for him either. I mean, he's been struggling. He had like 80 yards passing a week or two ago, and yeah, it's been kind of rough. I mean, the Texans kind of came on fire last year or two, and now it's not looking so hot. So I don't know what they can do to get back on track without one of their best receivers, but it just got a lot harder for them. That's for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned C.J. Stroud and just the run that he had at quarterback towards the latter half of the season, even making a little bit of a playoff push with the Texans there. You thought that team was going to be unstoppable. They were beating teams they
Yep.
never should have beat on paper. So to see that not transfer into the subsequent season, which is the season we're in, it's really hurting a lot of fantasy teams, and I'm sure a lot of managers in the world of fantasy aren't too happy about that. I'm lucky I didn't pick them, and as we'll talk about my fantasy team here in a little bit, but I mean that's one of the better non-picks that I made. Everyone else is basically trash that I picked up. From the Jordan Love to picking up Tua, had both of them on my team. They both got injured around the same time. Now Tua's back, Jordan Love's back, but he's not really giving me a lot either. He didn't give me any passing touchdowns last week, which didn't really hurt me that much financially. I did have a prop on him where I really would have loved to have a passing touchdown from him, but it hurt my fantasy team, and that's what I need. I'm on a 4-week loss streak, Robert, and I got to tell you that.
It's tough. It's
Yeah,
tough.
so we're not really too happy about it. We're not too happy about it. But I guess if you're going to talk to me as a fantasy manager, what advice would you give me? 4 losses in a row to rebuild. I'm facing injuries just like everyone else is in the NFL. The teams in real life, but I'm sure other fantasy teams are being plagued with this as well. What would you say I do? Do I string some trades together? Do I try to find a prayer in the waiver wire? What do I do to rebuild?
Trades are tough, because it's usually like a 1-to-1. Everyone's looking for that 1-to-1 equivalent level trade. And all the apps now have like the point value to point value. Like, here's your point value per game with them and without them. And when you trade for this player, this is your new point value per week. So it's kind of hard to like sneak a good deal in on somebody like, years past where you're like, all right, I'm going to get, Stephon Diggs pre-injury, for nothing. But um, Yeah, I think you just got to go out and look for those guys that maybe they're not the flashy dudes on offense, but they're the consistent guys that maybe get you 10 points a week or something. But they do it on a consistent basis. I think you got to pick up a couple of those guys just to ride out the storm, until you get a couple good guys back. Or, yeah, maybe you do pull a trigger on a trade and try to dump one of your quarterbacks for somebody that needs a quarterback in their offense. Um, there's a few things you can do, but yeah, I mean, you can try to play the weekly matchups. That's kind of like my last scenario I want to do. But at certain positions, if there really is no one available, you just got to look at the weekly matchups and try to figure out. All right, like defense. This defense is probably going to put up 20 points this week because they're playing against Tennessee or something. Or this tight end might score 2 touchdowns because that team has given up 2 or 3 touchdowns to tight ends every week. You just kind of looking for those like niche stats. Um, maybe a underused part of a good offense kind of guy, and just roll with the punches. But it's tough. I mean, you lose one good player on your fantasy team, that could be it for the year. Like, I had a year a couple years ago, and McCaffrey went down for the season. It's like you take him number one overall, and you're expecting the guy to get you 30 points a week, and then he's gone for the year. So I don't know. There's not a lot coming back from something like that. I mean, you're not going to be able to replace that kind of player, but you can do the best you can and pick up guys off the waiver wire. I mean, a couple years ago, I ended up picking up like Damian Harris for the Patriots when he popped off for like 8 touchdowns in like 6 games or something. Just kind of got lucky. It sometimes takes a little luck too to win this thing. And um, with all the crazy injuries this year, you could see a lot of first place teams go to last in a matter of no time.
Yeah, I'm going to take that into account, and I got to find a way to do it. I like what your idea was, almost find the holes, find the gaps in players that might be heating up, might have got a few touches last week. Maybe they didn't go off, but they got a few touches, and they're rising in the rankings as far as the power rankings go in fantasy. Pick up some of those guys and maybe expect them to get maybe more touches than they did. Maybe they saw some promise in them the week prior. You pick them up, and you kind of you're taking a little bit of a risk per se, but it's better than no risk at all. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and you can find that in the waiver wire. But also stringing together some trades is important too. We actually implemented in the GSN Fantasy a program on how trades are to take place, and if they happen within a 5-point margin, or if it's more, I don't know. I got to read the verbiage in it, but basically it's on a point system, and then if it's within or exceeding of a point system where the transfer the trade difference in points is too exceeding, if it's the difference is too big, then you have to put it to a vote, and then you got vetoes and other things that come into play. But that seems to be the best process that I found to mitigate all the issues and people bitching and say, oh, this guy's trying to throw the league, and maybe they're 2-5 or 2-6, and they're like, oh man, what the hell am I even doing here? I'm just going to give my players away.
Yeah,
So try
that's
to
tough.
mitigate that, because you got guys that'll throw the league. I don't think we have any of those guys in our league per se, but it's happened in other leagues that I've been in, and it seems like the managers and the commissioners have had trouble in mitigating those issues. So the better you can nib those in the butt and make it as diplomatic as possible, the better off everyone's going to be. You're never going to be able to, as a commissioner, I'm the commissioner of the league. As a commissioner, you're never going to make everybody happy. There's always going to be somebody out there that's not happy with how things are going. But if you can put those things to a vote, make it as democratic as possible, to make it agreed upon, then you're going to be in good shape as a commissioner.
Yeah.
So I digress. Okay, let's we got to talk about Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, what the hell is going on in Indianapolis? I mean, this guy, he pulled a Deshaun Watson. Okay, he pulled a Deshaun. And I think it's even worse. It's even worse because you're talking about a rookie quarterback that should be blessed to be in a starting position in the NFL. He fought very hard to be in this position. I'm sure a lot of people would have loved to have his position. And as you can see by the subtitles there, Joe Flacco is in. So a veteran quarterback is playing behind Anthony Richardson, a rookie, a 22-year-old rookie. And obviously, for reasons that we know now, Flacco's in, Richardson's out. Can you just unpack this for me a little bit and tell the people about it?
Yeah, I mean, controversy aside, like Richardson's been playing terrible. He hasn't gotten on a rhythm at all. You know, he has like the lowest completion percentage of qualifying quarterbacks in a certain number of games. There's like a certain number of pass attempts since like 2000, and he's the lowest completion percentage of all of them. And so when you start capping that off by saying stuff like, "Yeah, take me out, coach. I'm tired," you know, it doesn't really put a good image in everyone's mind. And if you're a Colts fan, like this guy is supposed to be the leader of your franchise. He's supposed to set the tone. You know, if you're in the organization, like you're thinking, who is this guy and why is he on our team? You know, like here he is in a game where they have a chance to take the lead in their division, which is always surprising. The Colts always are somewhere around like 500, even though their team is always like seemingly average. But they have some good guys this year, and they have actually a good chance to win some more games. But now with him at quarterback, and they've looked like a different offense with Flacco. Like I don't know if you've seen any of the games with Flacco in, but it seems like they're just bombing it down the field. You know, Alec Pierce is going off and getting some throws to Pittman. You know, when he's healthy, and yeah, it just looks like a completely different offense. And yeah, I feel like he's somebody that's kind of relied on pure athleticism to get where he is, and that's only going to get you so far, man. You got to be, you got to be cerebral. You got to be, a student of the game, and to go out there and say, "Yeah, take me out. I'm too tired." I mean, that's something I've never heard any football player that's a diehard football player like ever say in their entire lives, let alone in the NFL. So you're getting paid millions of dollars, and now you're like, "Yep, I'm too tired." And I listened to the Pat McAfee show because they're like kind of the homers there. Obviously he played for the Colts, and I think they're based in Indianapolis where they do the show, and they don't try to say too much bad about the Colts. Obviously, trying to be homers with the team, but they said that that there's not a lot of excuses they can make anymore for the guy. So I don't know, man, but I love Flacco. Flacco, the fact that he's even still in the league, I think's awesome, and he's just kind of been floating around playing that Ryan Fitzpatrick esque kind of role, except a little more efficient at it. So I kind of am looking forward to seeing him play some more and maybe win some more games with the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about grandfathers at the quarterback position in the NFL. Flacco's got to be in that conversation. Sitting at 39 years old, Rodgers is 40, but he's up there in age and he's playing the backup role. Almost reminds me a little bit of Andy Dalton type of quarterback too. Just kind of the backup, solid backup. They can count on you. You count on a spot in almost any team in the league uh, as a solid quarterback to go to. Maybe not your main guy if you got a hot rookie coming out, out of the draft. But yeah, I like to play with Flacco, and like you said, he brings more fire. He's getting the ball down the field, and it's kind of what the Colts need right now. It's a breath of fresh air for the players and for the fans. So I think it's a great pick. It's a great call. It's kind of timely, really, looking at where the Colts are at right now in the season to bring Flacco in, and obviously they made it real. Anthony Richardson made it real easy to pull
Yeah,
him because you have no status, and you're pulling a Deshaun Watson first of all, like you mentioned, even though pulling a little bit of Antonio Brown action, and you got to kind of read the room. I can't do this. I can't do this
yeah,
right now. I can't tap myself out and be like, I'm out. I'm out right now. I'm tired. I need a breather. I need give me a couple plays because Flacco's not ready to come in the game right now. Okay, they're not running the two quarterback offense, two quarterback
yeah,
scheme like Michigan Wolverines are, and it has worked in years past. I haven't really seen it happen too much in the NFL. Usually, you have a guy you ride or die with him,
yeah.
and that was definitely the case with the Colts. But he kind of threw a curveball at everybody. Richardson did when he's like, "Hey, I need to come out." So, how does this play out? How does Richardson rebound from this? Does he ever see the field again, or is he done?
I think he'll see the field again, but I think they just need to let him sit, man. Let Flacco ride out the rest of the year. The Colts actually have a decent enough team to win some more games. Let it play out the way it is. Let him learn from the vet, and kind of let the whole situation cool down too, right? Like maybe people will start to kind of like the heat will die down a little bit, and he won't have as much pressure on him. when he does come back. And now it's all of a sudden everyone's kind of forgotten about what happened maybe a little bit. But yeah, he's got so much to learn aside from this whole situation that he just doesn't seem NFL ready, and they need to quit trying to plug these guys in their rookie seasons and trying to get them into the game so early. And yeah, like he didn't look that good last year, and he's coming out of college. It's like even the Florida fans were like, "Yeah, you guys don't really know what you're getting with him." It seems like he's that big athletic type of guy that can make some special plays, but he's also going to cost you too with some turnovers and some bad throws. So I think he'll be back, but yeah, maybe not even with the Colts, man. Who knows? Like maybe that was the final straw, but I think it's too early for that. So I think he will be back with the Colts. And but yeah, they should just ride Flacco out the rest of the year. And they definitely can't start flipping back and forth. So like, yeah, Flacco started for 2 weeks. Now let's put Richardson back in. Like there's going to be no continuity in the offense there. So whatever their decision is, just ride with one of the guys the rest of the way, and we'll see. I guess what his future looks like. But to me, I wouldn't want him on my team. So
Yeah, it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back for Anthony Richardson. We will have to see. But you mentioned an important aspect of what happens when new quarterbacks, hot quarterbacks, come to the league. Top recruits, top draft picks. Why do they get a why do they get first in line access to play? And we see this happen a lot. You got Jaden Daniels, you got a couple other guys that are in that same boat per se, and even a CJ Stroud, which I think he was a little bit more deserving. Obviously, if you need a quarterback, you don't have a quarterback, you're going to be going in, you're going to
yeah,
be playing first string. But for these teams that don't, or maybe they have a good solid guy, which Joe Flacco is, he's been to the best of the best of games, the highest level, especially when he was back in his Ravens days. But why doesn't he get a first in line spot? His years are obviously dwindling as far as playing years. Why do we see this so much with rookies coming in and getting almost that first string bid more times than not?
I think it comes all the way from the top, man. Like the owners want to see that return on investment. They spent a top 5 pick on the guy, and they want to see their shiny toy in the game making plays. And it's not flashy to see the backup Joe Flacco get up off the couch midweek and head on over to Indianapolis and start throwing touchdowns, but it's better than what you got now. So when you got a team that's like the Colts, they're kind of in that unique situation where they may not have the quarterback situation figured out, but they do have a good option that they should roll with Flacco. So I think that they try to start quarterbacks too early now, and that's something that Peyton Manning and Brady have both mentioned is just like there is no like let's sit down and figure this out anymore. Like some of the best quarterbacks to play the game have had that, grace period where they've sat behind a good quarterback. Aaron Rodgers did it. Love sat behind Rodgers, and then you go to like Brady sat behind Bledsoe, and you get Brett Favre even hopping around a little bit, learning from some vets before he really took off. And yeah, it just seems like that's a pretty consistent marker of somebody that's going to have success. Now, there's anomalies, right? I mean, CJ Stroud came right in and started lighting up the league. But he's struggling now. He's kind of having that sophomore slump, I guess. So, um, yeah, I think that's the ticket. Like, just give him some time to develop, see how, like, learn the game from somebody that's been in the league a few years. And if I was, starting a new team today, like, that's what my goal would be is even if we do spend a high draft pick on the guy, let's not put this pressure on just to appease all the fans and the owner to get the guy in the game as soon as possible when reality it could be hurting your team.
Yeah, you'd think you'd have a guy sit on the sidelines, maybe play a little bit in the preseason, feel him out with some in-game experience in the preseason, and then you kind of let him sit on the sidelines, learn the culture, learn the team, learn the personnel, learn how things go in an in-game, in-season scenario, because that could be very helpful to watch that from a distance, which is in essence the sidelines. You can do that and do that effectively. Wait your turn, your number will be called. And more times than not, especially with the injury situation we've seen in the NFL, your number is more than likely to get called at some point. So I wish we could kind of transition back to that as far as an NFL and the just the way of doing things go. because we've seen them get away from that and almost flip flop and plug these rookies in when maybe they're not ready to play yet. So,
Yeah, it's hard to watch. I mean, as a fan, we go back to like 2011 where like there were several quarterbacks throwing for over 5,000 yards. Like we were kind of in the golden era of quarterbacks. I mean, we had Rivers and we had Peyton Manning and Brady and Roethlisberger and all these guys. And then we've transitioned into what? Now we got Pat Mahomes and who else? Like,
yeah,
who else
really,
is
though.
on the list? Like, maybe Goff. Like Goff's
Yeah, you can
playing
throw
top
golf in
notch.
there. Throw
You
golf in there.
know, and
Baker's a rising star, I think.
yeah, now he's in a good situation. Like they've actually been playing some good ball. A couple young guys are playing pretty good, right? Like Jaden Daniels is playing good for Washington.
Yeah, oh yeah. That
But
was a hell of a win they had.
yeah, a nice Hail Mary against our division opponent. I like to see it. Like to see
Yeah,
it.
Bears fan. They showed a video with that touchdown happening in a bar full of Chicago Bears fans. They were just beside themselves. They couldn't. They almost couldn't accept it.
Well, as a Lions fan, we've been there. We've been there, man.
Oh, we have
Many
against Aaron
times.
Rodgers. Yep. Oh yeah, it's happened. It's happened a lot. So keeping on the topic of quarterbacks, this is the episode of quarterback, kind of centralized around all quarterbacks. Really, a lot of the quarterbacks in the league. Jameis Winston is now at the helm with the Cleveland Browns. What can you tell me about Jameis Winston, and how has Deshaun Watson's exit affected the Browns, both positively and maybe negatively?
Yeah, I mean, as far as Watson exiting, I think it's all positive, man. Like he was a bum the second he walked in the door over there. Like their offense never got anything going with him at quarterback, and I want to say it's karma for all the things he did off the field, but we won't delve too much into that.
That's right.
But Winston, man, I mean, he's one of those hot and cold guys, right? I mean, he's kind of like when we were talking about Carr before he got injured for the Saints.
Yep,
Like
Derek
he'll
Carr.
come in and have a bunch of good games, and all of a sudden you'll be scratching your head like, "What happened?" And yeah, I don't know. Like from a guy that threw over 30 interceptions in a season, it's hard to imagine that he's going to just start lighting up the league after one good game again. So I think he'll bring to the offense some spark, though. Obviously, I mean, he threw 3 touchdowns last week, and they really got the ball moving. So if you're a Browns fan, you're definitely like finally some life, and they got Nick Chubb back now from injury. So they got some potential to win some games. But with Winston, I mean, you're going to have those interceptions, man. At some point, he's just going to start throwing picks, and you're going to be scratching your head like, okay, I mean, here we are once again as the Browns without a quarterback, even though we're paying one $70 million a year.
What the hell is that? Like, how do they get that in the contract where it's like, hey, I'm going to basically say I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to show up on the field. I'm going to say I'm done. Okay, walk
Yeah,
off
like
the field, take my helmet off, sit my ass on the bench. And how do you get away with that? How do you get away with still getting paid that much money after an exit like that?
yeah, and not to mention like they deferred after they signed the deal, like they deferred money to the future years because they had some cap issues. So now they're going to be paying even more for the guy, down the stretch here for the next couple of years, and they have no way to get out of it. So they're in like cap hell. I mean, you got $70 million on the books for a guy you probably don't even want to see the field ever again for your team, and he's had continuing legal issues too off the field. Like there's been more women that he's made settlements with since the whole thing began, which a lot of people don't even realize that because it's kind of not really been in the news. But yeah, he's had a few more settlements since this all began, totally unrelated to the first batch. And yeah, you can't help but just say, well, that's karma for you, bud. Like, sorry, even though he's going to get paid a few $100 million to do nothing.
Well, yeah, he's getting paid that couple hundred million, and he's probably sending that right out to where he's paying them settlements out. So it's like almost like the Browns are paying them settlements, really.
Garnish wages.
Yeah, garnished wages. Oh man, I got to think the Browns are just like you said, they're in cap hell, and they got to be pretty close to hell in reality, just because they're in such a bad spot, and they're dealing with a guy that really is a degenerate, is a liability. You should have
Yeah.
got liability insurance on Deshaun Watson for a multitude of reasons. It doesn't look like they did that, and now they're paying for it.
Yep.
So yeah, they're gonna have to figure that out. Let's talk about the NFC North. Obviously, a lot of success in the NFC North. We've seen the Minnesota Vikings let off the gas a little bit. Packers
Yeah.
get a good win last week. What do you got to say about the NFC North and its status, and who takes the NFC North once everything's said and done?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to see a good key indicator of that this week with the Lions playing the Packers. It's going to be between those two. I think the Lions got the edge on them, even without their pass rush issues. But I always kind of thought the Bears and the Vikings, it's only a matter of time before they fall off because Sam Darnold, he's good like this year, but yeah, I mean he's had a whole career now almost to try to, with different teams trying to figure out if he's an NFL starting caliber quarterback. And to me, he keeps proving that he's going to turn the ball over in key moments. So I don't think he's really the guy. And the Bears still got a young quarterback, right? Caleb Williams is still figuring it out, and they have some pieces like Swift. I have him on my fantasy team. He's popped off for some games, 100 yards, multiple touchdowns, kind of thing. And their defense is kind of like opportunistic. They'll get some interceptions here and there, and I think the Packers defense leads the league in interceptions. So some decent defense play, in this division, and they actually have a good shot, for multiple teams to make the playoffs. you know, there was talk early on that could all the teams make it, somehow, and it's like I just don't see that happening ever. With
Yeah.
with the way the NFL goes, there's no way all of them are going to finish above 500. These hot starts often turn into fizzling out down the stretch, especially like some of them haven't really played as many good teams. So, I'd say the Bears have kind of played some weak teams, with some of their wins. So, we'll see. Obviously, I hope it's the Lions, and hope they can get some defensive end help in the trade deadline here, and make a run at the Super Bowl. Man, time is now.
Hey, the time is now. The people have been waiting years, decades. People have been waiting a long time, Robert, for a Super Bowl. You probably have people in your family. I have people in my family, and relatives and whatnot that have been waiting on the Lions to breed greatness forever. They've been waiting forever, and a lot of these guys, unfortunately, they've given up on. And
Some
I
are
gotta
dead
say,
and gone, man. Some are. You go to visit the cemetery and tell them, "Hey, the Lions are doing decent now," but you're waiting to walk through and say, "Hey, they're going to the Super Bowl and they're going to get a ring, man." But
right, right,
yet to
exactly.
happen. Yet to
Yeah,
happen.
it's happened. Yeah, and hopefully this year's. I guess like I said, pulling for the Lions. I want them to win. I want them to. I'd love to see them go win a Super Bowl, make history, do it for the city of Detroit, do it for the state of Michigan, and I would love to see that. But I feel like talking about it too much and say, oh yeah, we got Super Bowl berth potential. We have it in the bag. There's so many games to play. There's so much of the season
Yep.
left. Obviously, got to get through the season, make it to the playoffs, and then obviously navigate through the playoffs game by game and hope for the best. But I'll tell you what, if you wanted to be anywhere as a Lions fan right now, this is a hell of a spot to be in at
Yep.
this point in the season. So there's a lot of looking up for the Detroit Lions, and I'm here for it. Good deal. Good deal. All right. That brings us to the end of the show. Robert, any final thoughts, final words for the people going into the weekend?
No, man. Just everybody have a good Halloween. Have a great weekend, and keep enjoying some football like I am, and go Lions.
Yes, sir. Go Lions. Awesome. Well, be sure to check us out here on the Double Coverage Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook for live streams. And we'll see you guys here next time. Check out all of our links at the bottom of the podcast in the description. Check out our website, as always, ginsportsnetwork.com. For now, I'm John J. II here with Double Coverage alongside Robert Rachow. We'll see you next time. Have a great night.